So since the election last year, the term alt-left has been used by establishment Democrats to smear progressives. Now, it's really gained more steam recently because of the push for Kamala Harris. So the Democratic establishment is right now trying to set up Kamala Harris as the 2020 frontrunner. And progressives aren't really having it, mainly because we already have a good 2020 frontrunner in Bernie Sanders. But the other part of it is she hasn't really had a record to prove that she is progressive on these issues. And she also has a counteracting record to show that money can affect her. And I went into that in a previous video. But a big reason the term alt-left is gaining steam now is because of that article on Kamala Harris, where they quote 3 Bernie supporters who happen to be women. Now, when you can't call somebody a sexist Bernie bro, what you can do, instead of using that term to smear them, you can try and use the term alt-left. And that's exactly what a lot of these establishment Democrats on Twitter were doing. So here's the founder of the Daily Kos saying, "The alt-left is no longer the Bernie wing. These people are uncompromising extremists with a cult of personality." And here's Joy Reid chiming in saying, "This piece would have been more convincing had it quoted millennial voters, rather than 3 alt-left activists." And the term alt-left has been pushed in the press too. Like this Vanity Fair article saying, why the alt-left is a problem too. Much of the media spotlight has been on the alt-right, but the alt-left provides a mirror image distortion, the same loathing of Clinton, rejection of identity politics, and itch for a reckoning. And on the Daily Banter, the left needs to acknowledge its sexism. Part 2, Kamala Harris edition. They're already trying to take down one of the Democratic Party's rising stars. And here's liberal establishment outlet Fox News saying, wait a minute, Fox News is using the term alt-left? Yes they are. Sean Hannity, alt-left becomes increasingly unhinged as Trump follows through. And even alt-righters are using this term. Here's InfoWars editor Paul Joseph Watson saying, "Dear alt-left, keep being vile, joyless, and hysterical. We'll keep being funny, logical, and rational. See who resonates best." So it appears one of the things establishment Democrats and the alt-right agree on is the use of the term alt-left. And that actually goes into the history of the word. So here's a piece from Washington Post. Introducing the alt-left, the GOP's response to its alt-right problem. A piece by Aaron Blake from back in December. And he goes on to say, "The term isn't brand new, but it has just now gradually worked its way into the mainstream. It started with alt-right websites like WorldNet Daily, and has graduated to the airwaves of Fox News and Sean Hannity, who has been using it for a couple weeks now. And Trump, who has distanced himself from the alt-right term, may have played a major role in pushing it into the conservative lexicon." So the whole history of the term alt-left stems from the alt-right's need to want to look better. So they smeared progressives by calling them alt-left. And then it was picked up by establishment moderate Democrats like Joy Reid. But the comparison, when you actually compare what alt-right is compared to what alt-left is, the idea of the use of the term alt-left is even more insane. Cleo Chang of the New Republic put it well in an article called "Liberalism Needs the Alt-Left." As the New Republic's Sarah Jones pointed out, the alt-right's goal, shared by neo-Nazis like Richard Spencer and the White House's infamous Steve Bannon and Miller, is to implement a white supremacist state. In contrast, the goals of the alt-left are not too different from that of a New Deal Democrat. Universal healthcare and a $15 minimum wage are not the left's version of a Muslim ban, even if the rhetoric of the left is combative, uncompromising, and yes, sometimes obnoxious. So do you understand the comparison there? The alt-right has the intention of doing damage to those without money and power, whereas the so-called alt-left, or what I'm going to call progressives, actually have the intention of creating a society that properly represents everyone, both economically and socially. But the history of the term goes even deeper. Richard Spencer coined the term alt-right for his own movement. In very stark contrast, alt-left is a strawman invention of far-right websites. As the Washington Post's Aaron Blake pointed out in December, the difference between alt-right and alt-left is that one of them was coined by the people who comprise the movement, and whose movement is clearly ascendant. The other was coined by its opponents, and doesn't actually have any subscribers. When alt-left is deployed by the likes of Sean Hannity on Fox News, it is a form of propaganda used to conflate groups like Black Lives Matter with the Ku Klux Klan. For Walcott, the author of the Vanity Fair article I showed you earlier, to ascribe to this notion only gives the right-wing smear more credence. And that's exactly what it is, propaganda. The term alt-left is only used as a smear. No progressive self-describes as an alt-leftist. And if they do, question their motives, because it's likely they aren't actually progressive. Now, are there crazy people on the left? Sure. I just did a video on the Seth Rich murder conspiracy. And if you read through the comments, there are a lot of people who believe that the DNC / Hillary Clinton put a hit out on Seth Rich for potentially leaking emails to WikiLeaks. So there are people that think that, and maybe some of them self-describe as progressive. I would say a large swath of them are more likely alt-right, but they may self-describe as progressive. But here's how I describe progressive. If you're focused on pushing progressive policy forward, and that's where your focus is, on policy and not on conspiracy theories and not on just shitting on Hillary Clinton for the fun of it, but actually pushing forward a principled progressive vision, and one that is detached from big money, then you're progressive. But if you're focused on conspiracy theories and just being an asshole online, then no, you're not progressive. And the term alt-left is being used to describe people who are actually progressive, like Roseanne DeMauro, Winnie Wong, and Nomiki Konst. These were the women that were quoted in the Kamala Harris story, and Joy Reid called them alt-left, and that's insane. So when you see a liberal use the term alt-left as a smear, remember, it's a term devised by the conservatives to try and make the alt-right look better by equating the alt-right with progressives. Hey folks, so the YouTube ad money for shows that question the status quo is abysmal. So if you want to help me out, consider throwing me a few bucks on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/therationalnational. There is a link below the video and somewhere on the screen right about now.